Emily Parker, the art student who vanished without a trace by Lake Ontario. Sarah Mitchell, the nurse whose footsteps disappeared into the frozen Alberta night. Claire Dupont, the Montreal journalist found dead in a locked apartment. Michael Turner and Anna Weiss, strangers discovered side by side in Vancouver's Stanley Park. And the nameless three in the Yukon cabin, forever frozen at a dinner table of silence. These are the unsolved Canadian murders that still haunt police and refuse to give up their secrets. Summer of 1989 was supposed to be a season of new beginnings for a 24-year-old art student in Toronto. She was known for her vibrant sketches of city life, often wandering with a notebook tucked under her arm, capturing faces, lights, and hidden corners. On a warm July night, she attended a party by the shores of Lake Ontario, where dozens of young people gathered with music, bonfires, and drinks. The mood was light and festive, but within hours, what began as a night of celebration turned into one of the most enduring mysteries the city had ever seen. The young woman was last seen laughing with friends near a wooden dock that stretched into the dark water. Some guests remembered she had gone for a short walk by herself, saying she needed a moment of quiet after the noise of the party. When she didn't return, no one was immediately alarmed. Friends assumed she had gone home early, perhaps tired from the long evening. By morning, when her absence became impossible to ignore, concern grew. A search of the dock revealed her wallet, her sketchbook filled with unfinished drawings, and her shoes placed neatly side by side. To investigators, it looked deliberate, as though she had chosen to leave them behind. Police considered the possibility of drowning. The lake was vast and unforgiving, and many believed she might have slipped into the water unnoticed. Divers were called in and spent weeks scouring the depths near the dock. Despite their efforts, they found nothing. No clothing, no body, not a single trace that she had entered the lake at all. It was unusual. In most drowning cases, evidence surfaces sooner or later. The emptiness of the water search cast doubt on the initial theory, opening the door to far darker possibilities. As word spread, eyewitness accounts began to emerge. Two separate partygoers claimed they saw her near the tree line, away from the dock, speaking to an unidentified figure. The person's face was never clearly described, only that he appeared taller and wore dark clothing that blended with the shadows. One witness thought she looked hesitant, while another believed she seemed calm and willing to follow. Whatever the truth, those were the last confirmed sightings of her alive. Investigators dug into her background but uncovered little to suggest she had enemies or dangerous connections. She was a student, a dreamer, more interested in paint and charcoal than parties or conflict. No ransom note ever arrived, no messages hinted at a secret life, and no leads tied her disappearance to crime organizations or known offenders in the area. The case grew colder with each passing year, with police files thickening but answers remaining thin. The haunting image of her belongings still lingers in the public memory. Shoes neatly aligned, a sketchbook left open to half-drawn lines as if interrupted mid-thought. To this day, many wonder if she had trusted the wrong person that night or if something sinister waited for her in the shadows of the lakefront. The question remains unanswered, and the silence of Lake Ontario continues to keep it secret, as though the water itself had swallowed the truth. In the winter of 1996, northern Alberta was locked under heavy snow, the kind of cold that silenced everything but the crunch of tires and the whistle of wind through endless forests. It was along one of those remote logging roads that a truck driver made a discovery that would unsettle the region for decades. He spotted a car sitting at an odd angle on the shoulder, its headlights still piercing the storm. The engine was humming, exhaust curling into the frozen air, but the driver's seat was empty. The driver, a young nurse who had finished a late shift at a nearby hospital, was gone. Her purse, coat, and medical bag remained inside. It looked as though she had stepped out for only a moment and vanished into the wilderness. Police arrived quickly, concerned by the harsh temperatures. A person alone in the snow without a coat would not survive for long. They examined the car carefully. The fuel tank was half full, the tires intact, and there were no signs of forced entry or mechanical failure. The nurse's keys were still in the ignition, and her personal belongings were undisturbed. Nothing suggested a robbery or struggle. Outside, faint footprints trailed from the car toward the dense forest. Investigators followed them for nearly 100 meters before the tracks abruptly stopped, as if erased by an unseen hand. The sudden ending of the trail puzzled even seasoned officers. Fresh snowfall might have covered them, but the pattern was strange, too sharp, too clean, as if the prints simply dissolved into nothing. The community was shaken. She was known as hardworking and compassionate, someone who dedicated long hours to caring for others. There was no reason to suspect she had enemies. The first theory was disorientation. Perhaps exhaustion had caused her to wander into the woods where she succumbed to the cold. Yet search teams, helicopters, and trained dogs covered kilometers of land in every direction without finding a trace. No fabric, no remains, not even a glove or piece of jewelry. It was as if the snow had swallowed her whole. Over the weeks that followed, whispers began to spread. Long-haul drivers spoke of strange figures sometimes seen along those isolated roads, lone silhouettes appearing in headlights and vanishing before a vehicle could stop. Others speculated that someone may have lured her out of the car, perhaps pretending to need help, only to pull her into the shadows of the forest. The lack of evidence kept every possibility alive. Some residents suggested it could have been a deliberate act, a planned disappearance, though her life left behind no signs of secret plans or hidden troubles. She had friends, a stable job, and a future she was building carefully. The car, still warm when it was found, became the strongest piece of evidence, yet it told nothing beyond her sudden absence. Investigators marked the file as unsolved, one of the many mysteries buried beneath the snow. To this day, the empty vehicle with its headlights burning in the storm remains a chilling symbol of how quickly a life can vanish in the vast wilderness, leaving behind only questions and the echo of footsteps that lead nowhere. In 2003, Montreal was a city alive with energy, its streets humming with nightlife, art, and the constant pulse of movement. But inside a modest apartment not far from the downtown core, investigators stumbled upon a scene that remains one of the city's most unsettling mysteries. A young journalist, only 27 years old, was found lifeless in her home. She had built a reputation for her fearless reporting, often digging into corruption and criminal activity others avoided. Her sudden death might have been dismissed as an accident, but the circumstances inside her locked apartment told a story that didn't add up. The apartment door showed no signs of forced entry. Every window was sealed from the inside and nothing appeared disturbed. It was as though she had simply collapsed, yet the position of her body and the missing items suggested something more deliberate. Her laptop, the very tool she used for her investigations, was gone. Several notebooks she kept meticulously filled with contacts, timelines, and names of individuals tied to her latest story were also missing. The absence of these items pointed to a targeted removal rather than a random theft. Curiously, other valuables were untouched. Jewelry, cash, and electronics remained in place. Whoever entered the apartment knew exactly what they wanted. The autopsy left investigators with more questions than answers. There were no obvious wounds, no clear signs of poisoning, and no evidence of a struggle. Toxicology reports came back inconclusive. She appeared healthy, with nothing to explain why her life had ended so abruptly. The lack of a cause of death puzzled forensic experts and left police with little to work with. Friends and colleagues described her as determined, often working late into the night, chasing leads others would not touch. She had mentioned receiving anonymous calls warning her to stop pursuing her current investigation. But like many journalists, she refused to be silenced. Speculation ran wild. Some believed she had uncovered information too dangerous and that someone had arranged her death with precision, leaving behind no trace of entry or struggle. Others suggested the locked room setting hinted at something psychological, even supernatural, though authorities dismissed such ideas quickly. Still, the eerie perfection of the crime left the public unsettled. A person silenced in her own home, her work erased, and no fingerprints except her own found anywhere in the space. As time passed, the trail grew cold. Her missing laptop and notebooks were never recovered, leaving a void in the case that felt intentional, as though the truth had been neatly cut out. Each year, the unanswered questions gained weight. Did she stumble upon a powerful secret? Was her death a carefully staged operation by professionals skilled enough to leave nothing behind? Or was it something more personal, an act driven by someone she trusted who could walk in without breaking locks or leaving marks? The mystery of her final night remains unsolved, a puzzle with missing pieces that continues to haunt both investigators and the community. What lingers most is the silence of the apartment, A silence heavy with absence, as though the walls themselves held the answers but refused to give them up. On a warm evening in 2011, Vancouver's Stanley Park was alive with the usual sounds of joggers, cyclists, and families enjoying the fading light. It was one of the city's most beloved green spaces, a place people associated with calm rather than danger. But that night, the park would become the center of one of the strangest and most chilling mysteries in Canadian history. Two joggers, following a quiet trail away from the main path, stumbled across something that froze them in their tracks. Lying side by side were the bodies of two people, positioned almost as if they had been carefully placed. The victims could not have been more different. One was a middle-aged businessman from Vancouver, known for his work in finance and his structured, orderly life. The other was a tourist from Europe, a young woman exploring Canada for the first time. There was no evidence the two had ever met, no shared acquaintances, no overlap in their backgrounds. Yet there they were, found only meters apart, their bodies discovered within minutes of their deaths. The placement was unnerving, suggesting purpose, but the forensic results offered no clarity. When investigators examined the scene, they were struck by what was missing. There was no blood, no sign of a struggle, no discarded weapon. Toxicology tests revealed nothing unusual in their systems. Both appeared to have been healthy before their sudden deaths. The official cause was left undetermined, an unusual outcome that frustrated both police and medical examiners. It was as if life had simply stopped for them in the middle of the park, without reason or warning. Witnesses were scarce. The park had been busy earlier, but by the time the victims were believed to have died, only a handful of people were nearby. None reported hearing screams, shouts, or even the sound of running feet. Security cameras positioned around the park's entrances offered no helpful footage, leaving the final hours of both individuals cloaked in mystery. Investigators considered the possibility of coincidence, two people collapsing at nearly the same time for unrelated reasons, but the odds seemed impossibly small. The case attracted widespread attention. How could two strangers from different worlds end up together in the same secluded spot, only to die moments apart? Some speculated they had been chosen at random by someone experimenting with an undetectable method of killing. Others whispered about a hidden connection, something police had overlooked that tied their lives together. But months of investigation turned up no link. Their paths had simply crossed in the wrong place at the wrong time, or so it seemed. Over time, theories multiplied. Some pointed to environmental factors, a possible release of gas or chemical in the area, though no evidence of contamination was found. Others insisted it was the work of a skilled predator, one who knew how to leave no trace. Without evidence, the park itself became the only constant, its winding trails and thick trees a silent witness to a crime that resisted explanation. The memory of the two victims lying side by side lingers with those who found them and with the officers who worked the case. Stanley Park remains a place of beauty, but for many it is also a place where the ordinary rules of life and death seem to falter, leaving behind a mystery that refuses to be solved. Autumn of 2018, a group of hikers trekking through the rugged Yukon wilderness noticed an unusual smell drifting through the trees. At first they thought it might be the remains of an animal, but as they drew closer, the odor grew stronger and more unsettling. Following the scent, they came upon a small hunting cabin, weathered and partially hidden among the pines. Its windows were shuttered and the door appeared closed tight. Curiosity turned quickly to dread as the hikers pushed it open, and were met with a scene that none of them would ever forget. Inside, 3 people sat at a wooden table as if caught in the middle of a meal. Plates of food lay untouched, cups still half filled, and utensils rested neatly beside the dishes. Yet the diners were nothing but skeletal remains, their postures preserved in eerie stillness as though frozen in time. There were no signs of violence, no broken bones, no weapons, no evidence of a struggle. The door had been locked from the inside, making the mystery even deeper. How could 3 people die at once in such an ordinary position without leaving any trace of what had happened? Police were called in, and the investigation began with the cabin itself. It was remote, far from the nearest settlement, reachable only by hiking for hours through dense forest. The logs of the cabin were aged but sturdy, showing no forced entry. Inside, there were no clues about the identity of the 3 individuals. No identification, no personal belongings, not even clothing tags that could point to where they came from. Everything seemed stripped of context, leaving only questions. Forensic teams studied the remains and estimated they had been there for several months, but decomposition had erased many details. Toxicology tests were inconclusive, the food offered no signs of contamination, and the cups contained nothing that could explain their deaths. Stranger still, the cabin showed signs of order rather than panic. The table was neatly set, chairs tucked close, and the surrounding room was free of chaos. Whatever happened, it had occurred without resistance. Rumors began to swirl almost immediately. Some whispered about ritualistic activity, pointing to the deliberate arrangement of the bodies. Others suggested the three might have been part of a pact, agreeing to die together in silence. Yet investigators found no evidence of substances or tools that would indicate suicide. A few speculated about environmental causes, such as carbon monoxide from a faulty stove. But the fireplace was empty and the chimney clear. Every theory seemed to collapse under scrutiny. Months turned into years and the case gained a chilling reputation. The silent cabin, as it came to be known, drew curiosity seekers and theorists alike. Some believed the trio had fled from somewhere, erasing their identities before retreating to the woods only for death to overtake them in inexplicable fashion. Others believed someone else had orchestrated it, locking the door and vanishing without leaving a trace. The mystery remains unsolved, a haunting reminder of how the wilderness can hold on to secrets with a grip stronger than time. The cabin still stands, weather-beaten and abandoned, but its story lingers in hushed tones. For many, the most disturbing detail is not just that 3 people died, but that they seemed to do so in complete silence, seated as though waiting for something that never arrived.